You are listening to Torah Treasures, a messianic perspective on the weekly Torah portion, featuring Rabbi Jason Sobel.
The name of this week's Torah portion is derived from its opening word, Vayikra, which means, "And God called Moses." In the Torah, the last letter of this word is written with a tiny, small aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Why? What does it teach us about Moses and godly character in general? Tradition tells us that Moses did not want to begin the third book of the Torah with the word Vayikra, which means, "And God called Moses," because he felt it afforded him too much honor and distinction. He was reluctant to have it recorded for all time that God directly called him alone to be the first person to enter the newly completed Mishkan, tabernacle, which contained the glory of God. As a testimony to Moses' humility, God allowed him to write the letter Aleph in a smaller case. The letter Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Being the first letter, the Aleph is the lead or chief letter of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. This is alluded to by the etymological relationship of the letter Aleph to the word aluf, which means chief or leader. This hints at the fact that although Moses was one of Israel's greatest leaders and regularly spoke with God face to face, he never thought of himself as greater than any other Jew, despite numerous suggestions to the contrary. His request to reduce the Aleph is clearly meant to demonstrate to us that Moses humbled himself and made himself small in both the sight of God and Israel. It is precisely for this reason that Moses was chosen by God to redeem Israel from Egypt with miraculous signs and transmitted the Torah to God's people. As Midrash Rabbah states, Hillel used to say, "My self-abasement is my exaltation. My self-exaltation is my abasement." What is the proof? You find that when the Holy One, blessed be He, revealed himself to Moses from the midst of the thorn bush, Moses hid his face from God, as it is said, "And Moses hid his face," Exodus 3:6. Because of this, the blessed Holy One said to him, "Come now, therefore, and I will send you unto Pharaoh," Exodus 3:10. At the Red Sea, Moses stood aside, and the blessed Holy One be He said to him, "Lift up your rod, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it," as if to say, if you will not divide it, no one else will divide it. At Sinai as well, Moses stood aside, when God said to him, "Come up unto the Lord," Exodus 24:1, as if to say, if you will not come up, no one else will come up. In the tent of meeting, he stood aside. But the blessed Holy One said to him, "How long will you abase and lower yourself? The hour waits for but you." The proof is as follows. Out of the people, the divine word called none but Moses, as it is written, "And the Lord called unto Moses." The Torah itself speaks of Moses' great humility when it says, "Now the man Moses was very humble, more than all the other men who were on the face of the earth." All of us should follow Moses' example and strive to be humble people, for humility is necessary for godliness and is a prerequisite for spirit-empowered leadership. But what does Moses-like humility look like? It means being humble in both thought and deed. Being humble in thought means, first, not thinking too highly of oneself. Second, not thinking one is especially deserving of praise and honor. 3, esteeming others as greater than oneself. Philippians 2:3. According to Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lezuto, also known as the Ramchal, Humility of thought is cultivated through the following. Number 1, conducting oneself with lowliness. Number 2, bearing insults. Number 3, not desiring positions of authority and fleeing honor. Number 4, showing honor to all people. Moses and Messiah Yeshua embodied the essence of humility in thought, word, and deed. They constantly put others' needs and honor before their own. Let each of us strive to follow their example and by so doing reach greater levels of spirituality and leadership.